Welcome back, and we're going to continue talking to Mr. Kareem, our licensed therapist we have here. So what is it that you think as a licensed therapist that you can do to make them more aware and let them know that it's okay? Because they think, okay, you got to be crazy to sit on the couch and tell your therapist this or whatever, because it's either they thinking that it's not normal, you got to be crazy, or either, oh, I can't afford it because it costs too much money. Well, if you got health insurance, most times than none, it'll pay for it, or either set up a payment plan. Because you buy $200 shoes, you can go get some therapy and get some help.
Sure enough. You ain't lying. That's right. One of the things I would say is that mental health or therapy has been stigmatized. And so people have been made to believe that it's not a desirable thing to do.
Absolutely.
And so when we've been conditioned to assume that, then the very thing that's designed to help us becomes the very thing we assume will hurt us.
Right.
Especially, when you go into a place of work where your mental health is the thing that you need to do your job successfully. If you're seeking therapy and it's discovered that you're seeking therapy for a thing that you need to get through, will it compromise your fitness for duty, such as in law enforcement,
right,
or one of those professions where, it can be high stress.
Right.
It's not humanly rational to assume that one can operate efficiently under a heavy amount of stress.
So I'm glad you brought that up, because it's a major concern to me in our community. As far as a police officer goes, why don't they seek counseling? I mean, that should be a part of their job duty, to come in and get counseling before they start a shift, or get something in place to where they won't have this high level of stress, so they won't go out there and gun an innocent person down, or, have an attitude when they're pulling somebody over because they're having a bad day, because their stress level is off the roof. So what is it? Why is that not in place? That's what I want to know.
Very, very good question. And what I would say to that question is that because you sound way too reasonable to address the very thing that is like the pink elephant in the room when it comes to the law enforcement profession. It's this idea that if officers are struggling with mental health, and if society equates mental health with being something that's unreasonable or
right,
something that's not desirable, then then you have the law that states a reasonable person would believe that it was appropriate to use that level of force.
Absolutely.
It conflicts with their fitness for duty, and it conflicts it creates a liability
right,
for the agency and that officer and just the community as a whole to even profess that I got a mental health problem.
But it should be mandatory, because of everything that they see, everything that they endure, and their lives are on the line, in the line of duty when they're out there in the streets. But they are the ones who probably need it more than anybody else.
Facts. And, I don't know if you know this, but I'm a former police officer. I was a police officer for 8 years.
I do.
And I wrote a book about this, right? Breaking the Code of Silence, A Cop's Journey to Triumph and Truth. And I'm very transparent in that book about how mental health plays a significant role in how officers, how it compromises officers' performance. And I talk about some of the things that we can do to remedy it. However, again, the things that I am proposing or advocating for, such as mandated counseling during basic law enforcement training when someone's being trained to become a police officer, because it's the BLET process is a stress-induced environment, because they want to condition you to respond by addressing the threat whenever your fight, flight, freeze response kicks in.
Correct.
So we typically, as human beings, if we get threatened by a thing that shocks us or puts us in fear, we will run. Typically, we'll run because, again, the brain is interested in surviving.
Right.
Officers are conditioned and trained intentionally to go fight and address the threat, to eliminate it. And so when you have that kind of stress going on, or you're rewiring how you look at stressful situations, it becomes a hypervigilance you walk around with 24/7. Even when you're off duty sometimes, it becomes difficult to throttle down, if you will. And it layers, it calcifies, it builds into burnout, to where eventually that officer is either going to implode with heart attack, hypertension, depression, alcoholism, substance abuse, domestic violence, divorce, all these different things, or suicide, up to suicide, or he's going to take it out on the community.
Absolutely. And that's what's been happening. And for that reason, I feel that not only should it be in basic training or whatever kind of training you all get, but it should be throughout the whole career, and it should be accepted by society. Like, this is mandatory. This is serious. Like, it's too many people getting killed because of this overload of stress. And then on top of that, y'all probably don't even make a whole lot of money.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what we're talking about, money. So I'm sure their salaries are probably not where they want it to be. So
Absolutely.
that's another load, another stack of
time.
stress on top of what they already have going on.
Big
But
time.
Kareem, I want to thank you for coming on the show.
My pleasure.
You shed a lot of light on a lot of things that,
Yeah.
you know, mental illness is real, how to, you know, stay in your marriage longer by getting that money right and
Word.
doing the right thing and communicating, and also talking about the fact that mental illness needs to be incorporated in our law enforcement.